Some recent Washington middle school students say they'd recommend it to anyone.
They should just go for it.
It's a welcoming school now.
A glowing recommendation isn't what those students heard before they went there.
I heard that it was a bad school. There was a lot of bullying and stuff.
Cindy Olson heard the same things.
The climate and culture is different now than it was 3 years ago. And I understand why it was a challenge before. The teachers were doing the best that they could with the frequent changeover of principals.
Olson says before she arrived, Washington had turnover in its principal team for at least 8 straight years. The past 3, Olson's leadership team has remained intact.
And once they were given the reminder that they're amazing teachers and their kids are amazing kids, we saw changes as simple as saying hello to each other in the hallway.
Olson's work at Washington helped earn her a promotion within the district to a position created through organizational restructuring. She's now the Director of Secondary Education, which supports the principals at the district's middle and high schools.
I think that she has provided a very solid foundation for Washington Middle School by helping provide some consistency and stability.
2 of Olson's 3 years were during the pandemic, drastically impacting data we typically look at for a story like this, including standardized test scores, state report cards, and police calls. Without those measurements, what was it, besides her experience that led you to believe she was ready for this new position? Was it teacher feedback, student feedback, just being in there and seeing the changes?
All of the above. Just anecdotal things too, right? The number of students in the hallway, the number of students in class, the number of students when you walk into a classroom that are engaged in instruction.
District officials say this move is also easier to make, with Molly O'Neill ready to step into Olson's position after being one of her associate principals.
She has some great ideas as well, but she's also continuing on the same progression that we were moving on.
Of course, Olson will still have some influence on Washington, as it is one of the schools she supports in her new position.
They don't need my eye. They really don't. They will always have a part of my heart, that's for sure.
Local musicians in a free event, who can turn that down?
Appleton's historic central neighborhood's Porchfest started out as just an idea during COVID. An event the neighborhood association spent weeks planning for.
We just kind of kept talking about it and then kind of thought there was no better time, as it looked like, in the summer we might be able to get outdoors again and, be with people, even if there's some kind of, things we need to be cautious of.
The idea grew into 9 local musicians, setting up stage on the front porches with music good enough to get your foot tapping and all ages dancing.
Well, there's a lot of variety in the bands.
Having the local artists, because some of them I know, so it's pleasant to walk around and listen to all the different styles of music.
While everybody's out here to enjoy the music, neighbors say the best part is getting to see each other again.
And this is a way for all of us to reconnect. I love it.
I just think it's good to have people around and hanging out and doing stuff.
Co-organizer James Bacon is a New England transplant to the Midwest. He moved to Appleton just before the start of the pandemic. He says getting the neighbors together either for the first time ever or in a while was the #1 goal.
Events like this really bring connections between people and I think really make neighborhoods what they are, a collection of people that share a common space, that get to know each other and celebrate the diverseness that exists among the people.
And the new goal is to grow the event each year.
We were able to get 9 musicians to come out tonight, and we'll see, maybe in the future we'll even get more.
Friday morning, Kay Hippa's 89-year-old mother tripped and fell while alone at her home.
Thank God for Lifeline. I got there first and I saw how she was laying and I'm like, I am not moving you. So my sister came and she said, no, we need to call the ambulance. So we both figured that she had broken her hip.
Hippa's mother was rushed to St. Elizabeth's, an Ascension hospital in Appleton, to be treated for what would be a broken hip.
He was looking for a bed. He said they didn't have any beds there. So he said he'll look at the other Valley hospitals. So he looked at Theta Clark in Appleton and Theta Clark in Neenah. Both were full. So he looked at Greenbay. All 3 were full. looked at Oshkosh. Both were full.
In a statement, Ascension told Fox 11, Ascension, Wisconsin is experiencing an increase in patients with COVID-19 across our sites of care. While we are currently able to safely provide care, this increase can directly impact the ability of all of our local health systems to provide care to other patients who do not have COVID-19 but require hospitalization for another reason.
As you get older, you have more and more health needs. So I think healthcare in general is just working through people getting older, people being a little bit sicker than they used to be, and at the same time we have COVID-19.
Fortunately for Hippus, one bed opened up last minute. But if it hadn't, her mother would have to be transferred to Milwaukee.
To drive 2 hours in an ambulance with a broken hip would not have been a good situation for an 89-year-old woman.
This has become an all too familiar occurrence, and not just in Wisconsin. In Salina, Kansas, a bed could not be found for one patient, and the patient would ultimately have to be transferred to a hospital here in Oshkosh.
We keep hearing stories about patients who are being flown, potentially hundreds of miles to have an ICU bed available for them. And we know that a lot of emergency departments across other parts of the country are boarding patients in the emergency department.
It would be over 5 hours from the time Hippus' mother arrived at the hospital to when a bed opened up and she was finally able to get a room. Something to celebrate nowadays.
One of the nurses came in and I said, I just heard the song Celebrate. She goes, oh, every time a COVID patient is discharged, they play that over the loudspeaker.
In the Fox Valley, Monique Lopez, Fox 11 News.
As of today, there are currently 804 COVID-19 patients hospitalized and more than 600 additional compared to last month.